Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we have a little bit of a special review. This is going to be the first of two crazy beers that I review for my 29th birthday, the 16th of December 2020. So yeah, I'm getting old, a year closer to 30, crazier, more forgetful. That's just how life goes. But in this review I also want to give a big shout out and happy birthday to my good friend Paul Romelli over at PA Brew News. Today he turns 39. So yeah, born 10 years apart, both metalheads, both beer tubers. Maybe Odin was gazing upon the earth that day, the 16th of December. Maybe it was Satan, who knows, we can live and wonder, but either's good. But yeah, Paul, lovely guy. I met him in Manchester a couple of years ago. We had great fun, us and the other, and the English beer tubers. You know, that was great. He's a lovely guy and I look forward to seeing him in June and July of 2021. So you guys can see him here on the channel, but in the meantime do make sure you check out the link to his channel in the video description below. Go and give him a subscribe and wish him a happy birthday. He's got some great videos over there, and his trademark, I guess, is, you know, sitting in his little dungeon reviewing his beers with the black metal on. It's great. I really love these reviews. Paul's been, you know, Paul and I have known each other since just after I started up. Actually, he's been going a couple of years longer than me, if I remember correctly. But yeah, lovely guy, very knowledgeable about beer as well. Big fan of Imperial Stouts, so I need to make sure I take him a few interesting examples of them from over here in Scandinavia. Maybe some Scottish stuff as well, so we will sort that out. But yeah, big happy birthday to Paul, and dude, I hope you have an awesome day. But anyway, for this review, we have a really interesting beer to look at, I think. This one is another collaboration. It's half Danish on the home side, half American on the away side. Both of these breweries have featured on the channel before. The Danish one has featured here quite often actually, but the American one has only featured so far as part of two collaboration reviews. So when I go to New York next year, I will make sure that I pay this brewery a visit, film some out and about videos, and pick up some beers to do dedicated reviews for, so you can look forward to that. But yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to cross the Øresund once again and go to Copenhagen in Denmark, and we're going to revisit one of my favourite Danish breweries, and I guess one of my favourite breweries generally actually. I always keep an eye on what these guys are doing. So for this one we are going to go to Amager Bryghus once again, and we're having a taste of the Damascus Steel today. So they're describing this beer as a double mash imperial barley wine. It comes in at 15%, so this is an absolute monster, and this one is brewed in collaboration with Interboro Ales Spirits from Brooklyn over in New York. So yeah, I think this one should just be absolutely crazy. I've had some really nice barley wines recently from lots of different brewers around Scandinavia. Dugis, of course, had their Bang and Kapal recently, which were a little bit more like kind of German Maibocks, I thought. They had a Scotch ale yeast in them and Pilsner malt. It was a really interesting combination. So from this one I am expecting something a little bit more kind of like a classic American barley wine actually, but obviously amped up considering that it's 15%. But yeah, I've had some really nice beers from Amager Bryghus over the years. These guys do have a double mash stout, and I forget the name of it. Is it the Murp Hill, or it's the one? Is it the Black Wolf or something? It's called. It does. I'm sure it's got a wolf on the label actually, but yeah, they do have a double mash stout that I need to try at some point if I haven't already. But yeah, these guys, Amager Bryghus, I've got some great beers. I've had some really great stuff from them over the years. They're very soon going to release batch 2000, which I really need to make sure that I get a hold of, because batch 1000 was one of my favourites actually. I think they're re-releasing batch 1000 along with batch 2000, so yeah, definitely need to check those beers out when they're actually released. But in the meantime, we've got a great beer to review today, and I think this one will kick off my 29th birthday very nicely. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites and the links to my other reviews that I've done both from Amager Bryghus and from Interboro Ales and Spirits. You will see more added to both of those lists at some point in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the channel and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that takes your fancy. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for both the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you and another one for the American beers. This beer will appear in both of those because it is dual nationality. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Amager Bryghus then, on to my brewery notes. So we'll start with Amager, since these guys are the home brewery. So Amager Bryghus, as I've told you on many occasions before, are based in Kastrup and Copenhagen in Denmark, in the south of the city, and they're probably one of the best known Danish breweries outside the likes of Mikkeller and Tolo. These guys were probably the best known brewery that were actually based in Denmark for quite some time. But the brewery was established back in April 2007 by two friends, Morten Valentin Lundsbach and Jakob Storm, and both of these guys had been friends since childhood, from what I understand, but they were also avid homebrewers. Apparently in school they were forced to do a chemistry and physics project together, and so they wrote about the fermentation process in beers, and from then they were hooked on the idea of becoming brewers. So both gained their brewing diplomas from the Scandinavian Brewing School in 2008, and the company has since gone on to become really highly decorated. They're one of the most highly decorated breweries in the country, actually. But the first brewery that they had was located in Tornbro in the southern part of the city, and they've been constantly expanding over the last few years. They had to buy a whole new brew kit in 2011, and that took their capacity up to around 250,000 litres, but they eventually managed to kind of expand within this facility to around 400,000 litres just within their first brewery. So they moved to a new site closer to the airport in 2018, which doubled their capacity, so they're now brewing in the region of 800,000 litres as far as I understand, and they also opened up their tap house bar in Copenhagen next to Nørreport station in March of 2019, and then they also own another bar now in Amager which is called Bryggen, and that opened, I think, was that about in November of 2019? It might have been sometime around there, or maybe early 2020, I can't quite remember. I think it might have been maybe January of 2020 that bar opened. But anyway, as of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 280 different types of beer, and they do a whole host of different styles actually. There's still quite a few styles that I've not tried from Amager Bryghus yet, but whenever these guys try something different, they always tend to do it very well. Most of the beers that I've reviewed from them so far have been either Imperial Stouts or IPAs. My favourite beers I've had from them so far probably would be the Batch 1000. I still think that's one of the best West Coast IPAs that I've ever had, produced in Europe. The Herr Fredriksen is one of the classic Danish Imperial Stouts. That's one that I would definitely recommend to anyone that's interested in Danish beer. It's a bit of a cult classic, that. I always remember Winter in Bangalore, Arctic Sunstone. Yeah, the Bastard Princess was a nice one as well, actually, and the one that I had recently, the Yule Juice, was, I thought, a very good one actually. So yeah, these guys, very solid brewery in my opinion. They're always doing some really interesting stuff, so it's one that I always keep an eye out for. And like I said, I discovered this beer was being released on Facebook, and I knew as soon as I saw it that I wanted to try it. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Amager Bryghus for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, let's move on to the American side of this one then. So on to Interboro. So Interboro Ales Spirits, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in Brooklyn in New York, and the company was founded back in 2015, but they opened a bit later in September of 2016. So the two main people behind this company are Laura Dirks and Jesse Ferguson. Jesse is the brewer, and he previously worked at Carton Brewing in New Jersey, and also for the famous Other Half in New York. That's another brewery I want to check out when I'm over there. But Laura, meanwhile, has a background in management and communications, and she had a lot of experience within the local craft spirit scene. So they put a lot of work into renovating their home on Grand Street to install a brew kit and a still, and they managed to raise $15,000 on Kickstarter to fund the purchase of a small pilot kit to make special batch beers, and this is what really helped them build their reputation. Over the last 3 years they've continued to grow their capacity, and they've got a tap room on site now as well at the brewery, which I will make sure I visit next year, as I said. And as of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 270 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they're producing gin at the moment, and I think there are plans to produce a few other spirits in there as well. But these guys have gone on to become very decorated as well. They're very highly regarded within the New York craft beer scene. And as I say, it's a brewery that I need to do a few dedicated reviews for when I make it out to the States in the summer of 2021, But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Interboro Ales and Spirits for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, again, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done as well. So yeah, that is it for your brewery history section. Let's move on and actually focus on the beer itself then. So as you can see with this one, you have your typical beautiful artwork from Amager Bryghus. These guys, they always produce some really nice stuff. The guy, Simon, his name, Simon Hartvig Dalgard. I love his artwork. I really, really love it. I think I'll be keeping this can for sure. This is one that I just thought, it was really, really cool. I thought the kind of Arabic style that's in this one, the Arabic art on this, was just pretty damn awesome. So yeah, and it was the name that caught my eye as well. It was actually my friend Ahmed, who is from Syria. He was over in Copenhagen and picked up a can of this from me from the shop that I asked him to go to, which I think it was Kiosk that he picked this one up out of. So big shout out to Ahmed for making this review possible as well. But yeah, I think this one will be awesome. But as always with Amager Bryghus, there is a bit of a blurb on the side of this one, so let's have a read at that. So, if you have never heard of Damascus Steel, we won't blame you. After all, the science of ancient alloys is rarely associated with the craft beer world, but when offering you a super potent double mash imperial barley wine, we wanted it to have a name that indicated equal strength and solidity, hence Damascus Steel. The forged steel used for the blades of swords previously smithed in the Middle East, such blades were reputed to be tough, resistant to shattering, and capable of being honed to a sharp, resilient edge. The reputation and history of Damascus Steel has given rise to many legends, such as the ability to cut through a rifle barrel or to cut a hair falling across the blade. For centuries, swords made of Damascus Steel were both feared and sought after, as they were in a league of their own when it came to blade weapons. Mysteriously, the craftsmanship of manufacturing Damascus Steel slipped into oblivion almost 300 years ago, and although many have tried to forge a modern version of the magic steels, no one has succeeded in finding the exact technique and recipe. A whiskey barrel-aged version of this beer has previously been released by Amager Bryghus, named Cullen Baker in the American Outlaws series. This is a collaboration made with Interboro Spirits and Ales in Brooklyn in New York, America. So yeah, as I say, this one is pretty cool actually. I didn't realise that it was actually the Cullen Baker, that this was the non-barrel aged version actually. That is pretty cool. But yeah, it tells you the stories on these Amager beers are always quite interesting. They put a lot of research into these, I think, as well, which is pretty cool. And that's probably one of the reasons why I like this brewery so much. I've actually got a couple of big bottles from Amager Bryghus where they've taken the stories. They've actually taken the stories away because they've been sold through Systembolaget. So yeah, not sure exactly why that is, but I'll need to get those off the internet, I'm sure. But yeah, I always like the stories that you get on these Amager Bryghus beers. But it tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here. As I said, 15% ABV this one. The malts in this one are Pilsner Pale, Crystal 60 and Crystal 120, 150. It's also got a bit of rye malt in there as well, so it's got Cara rye, and then the hops are Chinook, Cascade and Centennial, and it's got a strong ale yeast in it apparently. So yeah, this one should be quite interesting actually. I don't remember having Centennial in a barley wine before, so that'll be an interesting aspect to consider when we have this one. But like I said, beautiful artwork on this one. It's a black top can this. This is going to be an absolute monster. 440ml can. I can't remember what I paid for this, and to be honest, when it's Danish prices, I don't want to think about that. But yeah, wasn't too much. I mean, the Danish beers don't cost all that much in Denmark. It tends to be the imported stuff that costs a little bit more. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. I think this is going to be an absolute monster, and you can tell from the colour already that it is. So yeah, this is definitely a nice way to celebrate, to start off celebrating my birthday. But yeah, that's about 3/4 of the glass in the can. I also forgot to point out, this is the Interboro symbol just on the side of the can there. So yeah, you can see Amager Bryghus too. I forgot to show you guys that a little bit earlier on. But yeah, as you can see with this one, this looks absolutely lovely. So yeah, if we shine the light through this, it's actually a very, very dark and rich kind of ruby colour, this one, which is what you would expect. I guess this one is going to be an American style barley wine. But yeah, it's it certainly looks lovely. This is a lovely, very, very rich kind of ruby colour, this one. You can see that when we poured the beer, it poured with about a quarter finger, if you're lucky, of a frothy, very light kind of fawny coloured head. That's faded away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer. There is a little bit of island of froth in the middle of the palate there, and then just round the edge of the glass, it's a little bit, it does have a little bit of thickness. It does have a little bit of a kind of foamy ring around it there. But in terms of a barley wine, American barley wine, that lovely kind of ruby, almost cherry wood kind of colour, I think it's a very good descriptor of it. It certainly looks absolutely lovely at this one. I'm surprised that it's retaining a little bit of its head, to be honest, because usually at 15% there would be absolutely nothing on this. But yeah, this looks pretty cool. Remember, the colour of these beers, of course, is due to 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of the boil. And a barley wine like this, I would suspect this has got a minimum a 5-hour boil to it. That's going to caramelise the sugars a lot more, and just give you an awesome kind of malty feel to it. And look at the lacing on this. You can tell that this is a big boozy beast of a thing. But yeah, let's have a taste of this then, or have a look at the aroma rather. We've not had a look at the aroma yet. Let's have a look at the aroma and see how we get on. Yeah, that's just ridiculous. It's lovely. It is lovely. I mean, this is all about the brown sugars. This one, you've got a lovely big kind of treacly molasses sort of note to this one. You get the brighter caramels in there as well. You've got a little bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. Yeah, there is a wee bit of a kind of brownish bready sort of thing. You know, when you take the aroma in a bit more deeply, you can smell a little bit of that just kind of big brown bready character there. When it's got rye malt in it, to see it had a bit of cara rye in it, you are going to just get a little bit of that. So you have to take the aroma in quite deeply. And it comes across quite sweet in the same way that German rye bread will, but of course the aroma is just dominated by those big brown sugary notes. There's a few woody elements to this beer. You do get 1 or 2 little woody undertones to it. There's some nice little nutty qualities in there, but the malty base in this one, it's absolutely just big brown sugar. Lots of treacle and molasses in there, some brighter caramel, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuit. You do get that in there. Some of the brighter caramel notes come out the further that you go away from the nose. But yeah, the aroma of this beer, I think, comes across very, very nicely. Actually, it's beautifully done. So thumbs up to Amager Bryghus and Interboro for this. The aroma, the malt base in this is absolutely lovely. On the hoppy side of things, it is kind of what you would expect. There's a wee tiny touch of earthiness to it. It does have a little bit of floral aromaticity, but in fairness, at this point, quite a bit of the hop character has dropped. I mean, I'm not sure how long they let this sit in the can before they actually release it, because I don't think it doesn't have the batch number and the best before date on it. But I mean, they're saying that it says on the side here that it's canned 3 years prior to the best for. But I mean, when it's 15% as a barley wine, it's going to last a lot longer than that, to be honest with you. You know, quite a bit of the hop on the nose. As I say, the way I was going with this was, it does smell as if the kind of more floral and aromatic notes from the hops have kind of dropped out a little bit. You do get a little bit of that floral aromaticity, and there's a wee touch of earthiness to it. You do get some grassiness, but the hops come across as really quite smooth in the aroma for sure, definitely. Yeah, the fruity side of the aroma here is really nice as well. I mean, you've got a good little bit of a kind of, there's a little bit of a kind of plummy, raisiny note to this one. It's not too sharp right enough, but you've got some figs in there as well. You can get a wee touch of, you know, you can get just a little touch of citrusiness out of this as well. It's quite interesting, the fruity side of this beer, to be honest. It's got a little bit of that dried fruity element to it as well. You know, like a sort of datey, pruny, kind of cakey kind of thing, like a Christmas pudding. There is a little bit of that to this beer. And I mean, remember, with a barley wine, it is basically a very, very strong, you know, double IPA essentially. These the barley wines, the IPAs, the pale ales and stuff are all related to each other through the hop to malt ratio. Just bear that in mind. But yeah, the aroma of that beer is absolutely lovely. It's lovely big kind of brown sugars, lots of oily kind of red fruity notes, plums, a bit of raisin, figs, all of this kind of thing, prunes, dates. It's got a kind of almost cakey element to it as well, and then your malt base, lots of brown sugar, just a little bit of brown breadiness underneath, and some kind of smooth elements from the hops as well. So take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it, but we're going to taste this one now. So this one is the Damascus Steel, a 15% Imperial double mash barley wine from Amager Bryghus in Kastrup in Copenhagen in Denmark, in collaboration with Interboro Ales Spirits from Brooklyn over in New York on the American East Coast. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, happy birthday to Paul once again, me being 29 and getting old. Cheers. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, that beer, man. It's really very rich, but it's very, very nice. I'm just going to say thumbs up to both breweries involved in this one. This one, it has a hell of a boozy kick to it, I'll say that right now, but the flavour profile of that is very, very nice. Yeah, just going to say that's an awesome beer. Glad I kept this for a special occasion, I have to say. So yeah, this one I'm just going to put it right out there. This is definitely worth buying. It might be a little bit pricey if you're buying it outside of Denmark, but I'd say it's worth it. I would say it's worth it to try this one. This is very, very nicely done. I do wonder if Interboro brewed their own version of this back in the States. Let me know if any of you guys are watching from Brooklyn and you know that, if Interboro brewed their own version. But this one is a bit of a beast, definitely, for sure. So yeah, where to start with this one then? The one thing I'm noticing about this beer as well is that it comes in and it's really sweet and oily, but then you actually get a bit of you get a real bit of a dark, almost toasty, grainy note coming out of this one. The further that you go into the aftertaste, that must be the rye that's doing that. It must be that darker kind of rye note that's doing this with the beer. But that's a beautifully done beer. It's a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so yeah, straight away with this beer you can feel that there is a sort of grainy rye kind of quality that just blankets the middle of your tongue there. So straight away in the middle of the palate, you get that. It's a bit more prominent in that border region between the middle third and the back third of your palate. You really get quite a bit of it in there. And when you move on to the back third of the tongue, the graininess just kind of sits there. So this is really interesting. It's got a hell of a lot of brown sugar and a hell of a lot of slickness kind of sitting on top of that, but the grainy backbone that this one has is not something that I would have expected at all, actually. Yeah, it's really interesting. That's not something I would have expected, but maybe the beer at 15%, this beer is, you know, really damn boozy actually. You know that the kind of roasty toastiness that you get out of this is really interesting. That's an element that I wasn't expecting from this beer. The further you go into the aftertaste, you can feel it kind of smoothing out a little bit, and it does get a wee touch more. It does get a little touch more, sort of just kind of more bready, if you like. In the middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a sort of brown rye bready note kind of evolves out of that, but there's a lot of brown sugars just kind of sitting on top of it, like I said. It's really interesting that. So the back third of your tongue on this one is actually quite grainy, but you get a bit of more bready smoothness coming out of it later, and you've got a real kind of graininess sitting in the middle of the palate too. That is not what I expected from this beer at all, but it works. It certainly does work for it. But let's look at the brown sugary side of things with this one then. with in the centre of the palate with this beer, you do get a really nice, you get a very, very highly concentrated, treacly molasses kind of thing coming out of this one, which is great. You get that really dark kind of highly caramelised brown sugar, and as you move out from the centre of your palate, you can feel that it gets more like a kind of sweet caramel. Then it almost gets a little bit honey-like, and then at the very edges of the palate you've got a more McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, and at the very edge of the tongue it does have that, a little bit of that almost grainy biscuity kind of quality to it as well, but it's a lovely big, just thick, oily beast of a thing. So yeah, this is this beer doesn't do anything kind of unexpected in terms of the brown sugars, but I think it works really just very, very nicely. If you go to the front corners of your palate, then move diagonally back, you know, you will get a little bit of woodiness in the kind of front corners almost of that middle third of your palate. You start to get some nice kind of woodiness out of the beer. And if you go to the very centre of your palate and then just move forward, there's a bit of nuttiness in there. There's a little bit of an almost like vanilla type quality in there. So it's strange to get a little bit of vanilla out of this beer. That's not something I would have expected, but to me there's a little bit of a nutty and vanilla kind of thing, almost like almonds or something. Yeah. Almonds or hazelnuts. I don't eat nuts all that much, so you know, giving you different descriptors for nutty sides of things is a bit difficult for me, to be honest with you. But regardless, the woody and nutty undertones that this beer has are really, they start to get more and more prominent the further you go into the aftertaste with this beer. But it certainly works really, really well in my mind. Yeah, this is just an awesome beer. So thumbs up to both Amager and Interboro with this. The malty side of this, which is the difficult thing to get right with the barley wine, they most definitely have that right with this beer. So yeah, hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of, you do have a little bit of earthiness there. As you move kind of further forward along the sides of your palate there, you can feel that it gradually makes the transition to become more, pardon me, kind of resinous, and it definitely becomes more kind of resinous and dank, if you like. Then as you reach the kind of front corners of your palate, you do start to get a little bit of floral aromaticity out of this one. But as I've said, it's a barley wine. You know, quite a bit of these hoppy characters are gonna, you know, it is going to kind of drop away, if you like. But yeah, it does have a nice little bit of a floral and kind of dank edge to it, which I think is very, very nice. But yeah, it's a lovely. This beer is just kind of ridiculous, to be honest. It's really nice and very rich. It's like a dessert kind of sipper sort of thing. Yeah, this is a can that I kind of kept for myself, but I really should have shared this. This is by the end of this can, I will be. The brain will be going a little bit. Let's just say that. You can already feel it, to be honest, from 15%. This beer is just a little bit mental. So yeah, speech will be getting slurred very soon, I would think. But yeah, around the very kind of front, the front curve of your palate, you get a little bit of that lighter grassiness there. But in fairness, some of the floral aromaticity just kind of sits underneath it, actually. But again, very, very rich. On that front third of your palate, you're getting that lovely oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And again, this is quite classic for the barley wine. You know, the Chinook is giving you a little bit of a darker grapefruit on that kind of border region, if you like, but as you move further forward from that, the grapefruit just kind of mellows out a little bit, and you start to get a more kind of juiciness out of it, and then it becomes more kind of like, you start on top of that, in the back part of that front third of your tongue, on top of that you start to get some of the kind of raisiny notes. You start to get a bit of a juicy plum out of there, as well as you move further forward. But yeah, as you go further forward there, you can get those kind of soft but still quite oily figgy notes underneath, and then on the front part of your tongue where you get the more oily, the most oily flavours, I guess you could say, you get a wee bit of a kind of black curranty type note to this beer, I think, which is nice. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit more of a kind of black curranty. I don't know if it'd go quite as far as blackberry. It's not quite as sharp to be quite sharp enough to be blackberry. But yeah, it's definitely got a nice little bit of a black curranty sort of thing to it for sure. So yeah, I like how that goes together in this one. Around the kind of front edge of the tongue, you do have a nice little bit of a kind of zesty quality to it as well. That's the Centennial that's giving you that. There's a wee bit of a kind of darker lemony type flavour that comes out of it as well. So I do like how that goes together in this one. It's got a nice wee zesty edge to it, I see, but I guess as you probably let this beer age a little bit, that will kind of drop away and you'll start to get even more of the fruits out of this one. You can to a degree feel that this beer still has a little bit of its hoppiness and bitterness and things there, but this beer, as you let it age, it will mellow out actually. I don't know how that would work, kind of aging the beers in the cans rather than the bottles and stuff, to be honest with you. I suppose it wouldn't make too much difference. The cans don't get light and stuff in them, so yeah. But it's not something I've tried before. But I guess it's not often that you get a 15% barley wine in a can. That doesn't happen that often, I have to say. But yeah, in terms of the flavour profile of this beer, I think Amager have done very, very well here. The one thing we haven't mentioned is exactly what style of barley wine this is, and I think it's most definitely an American barley wine. There's not too much doubt in my mind about that. It's got the big, oily, bright brown sugars. It's got the lovely kind of bright and oily, juicy fruits. It doesn't really have any of that kind of phenolic and more toasty sort of thing that you would expect of the English barley wine. The one thing that could well be a little bit English is the kind of grainy bready notes that I was talking about earlier, but this is most definitely an American barley wine rather than anything else. But it's a beautiful beer, and that's the main thing that we should take away with this, and I'm going to enjoy sipping on this for the rest of the evening. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful beer, this one for sure. In terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off the review, yeah, definitely a full-bodied beer. I would say bottom end of full-bodied. It does have a degree of slickness to it as well, but the carbonation is very, very smooth. The mouthfeel overall, as you would kind of expect from something this boozy, is very oily, but like I say, there is a degree of slickness to it. In terms of bitterness and stuff, it does have a wee bit. I mean, I would say this has maybe got about 60 or 70 IBUs in it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a bit higher than that. Does it say on the can? I've got a feeling that they used to say this on the can with these beers, but no, it doesn't actually. But I would guess this has maybe got 60 or 70 IBUs to it, in fairness. But the yeah, 60 to 70 IBUs. So there is a little bit of bitterness to this beer, but the malt base, like I say, there's a wee touch of graininess to it underneath, although that does become a little bit more prominent. You've got some lovely woody, nutty undertones which give it a bit of smoothness, but you've got a big oily, brown sugary sweetness out of this one, which is great, and a lovely oily but juicy, fruity character as well. So I really like how really like how this one goes together. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, this Damascus Steel, awesome stuff from Amager Bryghus. This is probably one of the best high alcohol beers I've had from them. I don't know, have I had I can't remember if I've had. I must have had a barley wine from Amager at some point. I've had a lot of beers from these guys over the years, but a barley wine doesn't come to mind at the moment, come to think of it. So yeah, I have to say this is just an awesome beer. I've come to expect that from Amager. And from what I gather, their higher alcohol stuff has been getting better and better in recent years as well. Actually, the last high alcohol beer I probably had from these guys would be the Red Cap, which was a Scotch ale, and that was very nicely done, I have to say. But yeah, this one definitely gets a thumbs up from me. I've really enjoyed this, and this is a nice beer, as I say, to start off my 29th birthday. So yeah, shout out to Interboro Ales Spirits on this one. I definitely look forward to trying more of their beers at some point in the future too. But let's leave it at that for this review. This was the Damascus Steel, a 15% Imperial double mash barley wine from Amager Bryghus in Kastrup in Copenhagen in Denmark, and Interboro Ales Spirits from Brooklyn in New York over in America. Awesome stuff from these guys. Lovely big American barley wine. 15% though, it is a bit of a monster. I do wish that I'd timed this review to share it with somebody, but I'm going to enjoy sipping on this for the rest of the evening anyway, and I hope you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Amager Bryghus and Interboro Ales Spirits. We will return to both of these breweries, as I said, but in the meantime, thank you for watching. Check out my friend Paul over at PA Brew News. Big happy birthday to him once again. And I will catch you guys very, very soon. Slàinte, school, cheers, and here's to getting older. One year closer to 30 as I said. Cheers.